episode of The Voice Party is brought to you by Big Boy Raps. Get your car wrapped by some of the most experienced and skilled in the Bay. Big Boy Raps, where the big boys play.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, at home all around the world, introducing to you this episode of The Voice Party. We got Phil Spruner on the boards, we got JD, we got Natalie, and an esteemed guest. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Rachel.
Hello, Rachel.
Hi, Rachel.
Hey, Rachel.
Hello.
Do you like that pastor intro?
Yes, I did.
Bring back memories.
Yeah.
How you doing today?
I'm good, actually.
Yeah.
It's been a very relaxing weekend, so I'm not looking forward to work tomorrow. But
Yeah. No, yeah. We've been planning this for a while now. I think I asked you to do this before New Year's.
It was before New Year's.
Oh shit! Yeah. Yeah.
We've just been trying to coordinate schedules, I guess. But
Yeah, and then with the pandemic, you know, it's also like we weren't doing guests in person.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what that meant and whatnot, and you have a family. You know, I know it's like risky.
Yeah.
You know, I met you online, obviously, and you say we've had conversations about stuff that like I've never really talked with someone, and you know about stuff that I've never heard about, like on in the news or whatever. And you have a unique point of view as far as like, you know, feminist views that I've never historical things that have happened to women that I've never really talked about or haven't really even seen in books. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk to you about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
We were just talking about this. I when I mentioned to these guys, I think of you as of course a feminist, but activist based on you know what you do. But you say you don't really.
I mean, obviously, I'm very passionate about my beliefs. I do discuss it regularly. I don't hold back. I don't pull punches. A lot of times when I'm online talking about, you know, what I believe in. I have definitely done like volunteer work. I volunteered regularly for a while with Planned Parenthood.
Yeah.
Because women's rights, women's health has always been a very passionate project, I guess, of mine. I've pulled back lately. I don't really feel like I'm doing so much of that kind of volunteer or activism type work because A, my job, B, kids, C, I'm back in school. So I don't have a lot of that free time anymore to pursue. But I still like to discuss, you know, what I believe. And of course, it ends up bringing me in contact with all kinds of different people and having conversations with them. And I find that very, I guess, edifying. And of course, like that's how we met. And we're talking. And it's just a really great way to like pass knowledge on, I guess. You know, when you're meeting new people and discussing new things. I mean, I learn new things too all the time from the people that I talk to. It's not just obviously a one-way street. So. Right.
No, definitely. And you just touched on something that I think we've talked about. You know, when you think of Planned Parenthood, first thing you think is abortions, or and that's not all they offer. That's like a big thing.
No. In fact, it's about like I think 3% of what their, you know, quote unquote profit margin is. I mean, the majority of the services they provide are things like pap smears and birth control, STD testing, things of that nature.
That's the majority of it, right?
Yeah, the vast majority.
And that's not what, and you know, because you see all these people with the picket signs outside of a Planned Parenthood, and it's like
they're murdering babies.
Yeah, and it's like that's But if you really think of what they do, like a lot of the women that I know that I've talked to that go, you know, they don't have insurance, and like they go for stuff that women need, because you know women need different things as far as health-wise than we do.
Oh yeah.
No, for sure. And it's so funny because like the one that I volunteered at, they didn't perform abortions. I think they did prescribe like the abortion pill, which is what you can take up to like 9 weeks, but you don't.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like the 9th or 10th week of pregnancy. But they didn't actually perform abortions there, but they still protested anyways because they just saw the name Planned Parenthood.
Yeah,
they
that's
didn't
just
even know, and they're just like out there. I'm like, really?
Brand names.
It's a brand name. It is. It really is. So that was just very interesting because, of course, because I did like escorting. I did help with some fundraising too, but the primary thing I did was escorting, which is basically like protecting the people coming into the clinic. Oh. And like just talking with the different women and their partners, because a lot of times their partners would come with them too, you know, or a parent. And like most of them weren't there for abortion purposes, and they're like, why are these people screaming at me? Like, I'm here to get pick up my birth control.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and it's just, they don't.
Oh, something break?
No.
Oh.
Just my keys.
Okay.
So yeah, it's just fascinating because they obviously don't do their research either, and they just show up wherever they see the name, and they're just out there
Right.
with their pickets and their lovely pictures and screaming, calling us all kinds of names. That was.
Did anyone ever get physical? Like you said, you
No.
escorting? Okay.
No, we never had anyone get physical. Obviously, there's very strict laws about that. They
Yeah.
have to remain so many yards away from the actual property line. So nothing like that. It was more just verbal. You know, a lot of name calling.
Yeah.
A lot of yelling.
Yeah.
So I got called Nazi, part of the Fourth
Wow.
Reich, all kinds of a witch. I don't know. It was all kinds of stuff.
That's worse than getting heckled on comedy.
Right.
That's crazy. Yeah.
That's crazy.
When we first talked on social media, I remember it was something you posted that like some guy messaged you, and then eventually I saw like you get that like a lot.
Oh.
And we were actually talking
Yeah.
about this with there was another local podcast that came and did our show earlier today, and we were just talking about how, you know, the difference in how women, you know, how guys like message women on social media, and like how we communicate with each other when we don't know each other, you know, like it's a big difference.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And I think a lot of it is they're used to, women generally in our society are socialized to respond nicely, right?
Yeah.
We're
For compliments especially.
Yes.
Yeah.
But even like when a man's pushing it, like we don't want to make him angry. We want to still kind of like keep his ego.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
you just don't want to be mean. And so they're not used to a lot of, I'm not like mean. Like I don't go out of my way. I don't call people names or anything.
It's
awesome
when you do it.
I will just call them out, and I will just stand, you know, sit there and say, you know, this isn't appropriate. Don't talk to me like this. And they're just like, huh? And they like don't know how to respond to it. So it's just kind of funny. But then I do sometimes screenshot it and share it because it's kind of like a learning
Take
lesson.
note, motherfuckers.
Exposed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
And I don't always expose like their screen names.
Yeah,
it just
right, I see
depends,
that,
like
yeah.
how egregious the, you know,
What
thing
kind-
is they're saying.
What kind of things do they say to you in your?
It's been all kinds. Mostly it's, you know, like hitting on me or, you know, sexual kind of stuff. But there's all kinds. Like if I say something that they don't like, then sometimes I'll get a DM from somebody that's just straight up like mean from the get-go, like trying to argue with me about something.
Because they
Really?
disagree about something, huh?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So people get very brave behind a keyboard
Yeah.
Yeah.
when they're anonymous.
Yeah.
So
That's been the biggest thing over the last, especially, I don't know, maybe, I think it's always been, because I remember I did that, you know, we would argue with people on those chat rooms back when, you know, on the, was it AOL?
oh my God, yes.
Remember? Yeah.
Yes, I remember that.
And I remember getting so like, hey man, tell him to go fuck himself. Like I would get so emotional. And it's I feel like it's gotten worse because, you know, we sit out for the first time as kids, but there's been like new generations growing with that mentality now. And, you know, a lot of these dudes that I'm assuming some of them are younger too, right?
Oh yeah, most of them.
Most of them?
Well, I would say probably the majority of them. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely some that are around my age. You know,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
have said things, and you're just kind of like, wow, you're almost 40. I would not have known that. But okay.
Wow.
But no, even worse though is just seeing like what my daughters go through online.
Oh, wow.
And the things like that they get from grown men,
Yeah.
even telling them like their age because they're 15 right now, twin daughters, and they're 15 right now, and like just how they say that like, they don't care, and you know, asking them for pictures or just saying, you know, really explicit things to them, boys calling them names, just a whole lot of misogyny, like of
Yeah.
all different kinds, you know, and it's just crazy. Like it does feel like it's worse.
Yeah.
You know, compared to when even you and I were like
Right.
that age and the internet was in its infancy.
Yeah.
How's your relationship with your daughters? Are they comfortable with like going to you
Oh,
with
yeah.
about that stuff?
Oh yeah, they'll send stuff. They'll show me stuff all the time, and I guess I feel almost like, okay, I must have done something right because some of the stuff that they send back to these men, like that is never something I would have said when I was 15 years old.
Put
like,
them in their place, or
yeah, Oh my God, they don't take no shit.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
good. That's
It
good.
is. But yeah, no, we're really close. We're really open about that stuff. So
That's probably like the biggest nightmare as far as having kids. Like who they're talking to on the internet, what they're saying, and what's being told to them. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I grew up watching To Catch a Predator. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, the internet's safe now. No, not even for adults.
no, not at all. And I guess that's why my biggest, thing that I would say to parents is just try to have as good a relationship with your children as possible, because the better your relationship is, the more open they will be about discussing these things with you, and the less likely they will be caught up by, a predator or, someone trying to prey on them. So.
Yeah, no, I think about like I was never on social media, but I think about as a child, like how innocent I was, or not even a child, just as a teen, like, hey, do you want to come over and play some video games? Like, yeah, sure, text me your address, Yeah. I probably would have fallen for some.
Your kidneys would have been sold in the black market.
Exactly.
Exactly.
They test me, they see I have high blood pressure at 11. Oh, no. We're good.
Take him home.
Take him home, man. Give him a ride, yeah. That's for like being a parent in today's age, where like that I guess, I mean, I don't know if that's preventing me from having kids at this age, but I think about that a lot,
Yeah. I mean, if I could go back and do things over again, which, don't get me wrong, I mean, I love my children, but I had my daughters at 19. Wasn't exactly like I was thinking about what it was going to be like to raise a child 10, 20 years from now. It was, when you're 19, your brain still isn't fully developed, and you're very much in the here and now, and you don't always think about long-term consequences. And obviously, I think if I'd waited till I was a little older and was more aware of these things, I might have made some different decisions. But
the fact that your kids, that you and your daughters have that close relationship, that's still a plus.
It is.
Like, that's very important, and it's nice to hear that they're comfortable with you. Just for the simple fact that if they were to be in a situation where it's bad, or like, they're meeting up, or it's just a little bit more than like flirting or whatever, like you'll be there.
Oh, yeah. I've told them that, because I didn't have that as a child. So I've always told them, like, no matter what, like, even if you think I'm going to get mad, like, just call me. Like, I don't care. I will come get you no matter where you are, no matter what you've done. Like, just call me. And they have, like, they've always, like, my daughter did leave with friends one time, and she got lost, and she couldn't find her way home, and she was like calling me, come get me. And I have like the Find My iPhone thing, so I could see where she was. And I was like, all right, I'm on my way. But I didn't have that growing up, so it was like very important for me to like drill that into their brain, like, you have me no matter what. Like, there isn't really anything you could ever do that would make me so angry like I would disown you or anything like that. Like, that's not gonna happen. So
that's extremely, and especially in today's age, that's awesome to have that.
Agreed.
Well, I was gonna say something right now. They totally, like, we were talking about. One thing that I wanted to discuss with you is along the topic of everything that we're talking about. I realize how, like, especially as I've gotten older, like, most women have had some kind of experience with stalkers.
yes.
That's I didn't realize how much that really did happen. As a dude, we're kind of, we don't really ever. I've never had a stalker. Have you guys ever had a stalker?
I've never had a.
Never.
Honestly, I wish I had.
I would probably be like
female stalker. I would marry myself. I'd be like, look, I'd never be.
Love me.
Come on.
To a certain extent,
you were right outside my door. Would you like to come in for some breakfast?
To a certain
Let's
extent,
talk about this.
She's like, no, I want your organs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's usually for a different reason if a woman's stalking you. It's not for that.
I know. Would you say, like, that's the majority have had some kind of,
Most of my women friends or women that I've had conversations with have had some sort of stalker. I mean, myself included. Of course, mine wasn't like a stranger. It was my ex. But he was a little intimidating. I mean, it was bad enough I had to get a restraining order. So, I mean, that's the closest that I've had to that experience.
But it's very common because even like we've talked, rejecting a guy
Oh yeah.
face to face can, depending on that guy's level of whatever, it can be kind of a dangerous
Well,
experience.
yeah. I mean, women have died. I mean, I read stories in the news.
Yeah.
And there was one relatively recently where like he came back to the party and shot her because she rejected him.
Wow.
I think this
Oh,
was
wow.
I think this was in Southern California. It was in the last like 6 months or so. But there's been others, where women get killed or they get beat up because they say no to a guy, and it's like not even a guy they know, and some stranger that they meet at a club or a bar, and it's just crazy.
That kind of keeps me up, like with like my sisters. I mean, not all women, of course, but like I think about the women I know when it comes to that kind of thing.
yeah.
You know? Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy because we were talking about this earlier. If I met one of my best friends and he was a certain way to women, I wouldn't know it because we guy to guys, a lot of the times you have certain guys give off hints that this fucker's crazy.
Yeah, there's something wrong.
There's something wrong with this guy. Yeah, but then there's some that I read about, or where like their friends like, wow, he didn't seem that way at all.
See that coming, no?
He was stalking, well, quiet is kind of a big one. That's a big one.
Yeah.
So kind.
But it's like it's more common than like we realize. Like
Yeah.
it's scary to think about, man. And I'm not saying I have that in me or whatever, but like certain guys, like you can see it, like, wow, is that in me too? You know what I'm saying? No. And that's why I wanted to I'm not saying but you get what I'm saying, like,
yeah,
because you see it in a lot of fucking dudes, and it's like, is that just something that we're kind of,
Is it in my DNA?
is it in my DNA?
like if the right
I know it's not.
the right social triggers happen, would you end up like that?
Right.
Who's to say? I mean, I don't know how much studying psychologists have devoted to stalkers.
Fucking psychologists have become stalkers themselves. So it's like,
Yeah, exactly. No, that's actually true. I mean, sometimes it's like the more they learn that language of psychology and like how the brain works, it's like the scarier it makes them.
Hannibal Lecter.
Right?
You were just talking about your upbringing too. That's kind of ties into what I wanted to talk about with your kids, as far as belief, because we've talked about belief before, and like, how are you, like, do you want them to have a Christian? No. Okay.
I've raised them very open.
Okay.
They can believe whatever they want.
Nice.
One of my daughters says that she's an atheist. She doesn't believe in anything. My other daughter likes witchcraft.
Oh, okay.
She's very into paganism
Nice.
and like nature. So I'm like, okay. I mean, she's 15. Could be a phase. Could last the rest of her life. I mean, I don't know. I don't really. To me,
support it.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me one way or another.
Yeah.
It was funny though because she just broke up with her boyfriend that she'd been with for a year and a half because he's Catholic, and he was not very supportive, and it was getting to a point where he was like, they just were clashing all the time, especially about like religious type stuff, and he wasn't supportive of it. And we had a lot of conversations, and I told her, look, no matter how much you might like him or think he's a good guy, like he and you don't have the same value system. It's just gonna be
you just
really
don't.
hard. No.
I that sounds like an awkward pairing. Like, there's got to be some part of him looking at her and going, in 1511 we would have burned you. I don't.
Yeah.
You sure you haven't considered converting to my side of the street?
I'm trying to save you.
Yeah.
There's something creepy about people that come up to you trying to save you. Like, you don't fucking know me, dude.
Oh, I know.
It's like, look,
I don't get me wrong. I need
it's
saving,
fine.
but you don't know me.
Ideally, it's not that they're trying to save you. They're trying to
I get
Jesus
it.
to save you.
Right. Yeah.
If they're really just trying to save you in their own minds, they have an ego problem, or they have.
Or they want to be a
interesting-
therapist.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's weird. Like, with someone that thinks they're saved. Yeah, I think we talked about this.
Oh yeah.
There's a creepiness to that. Like, you make no mistakes. Like,
Well, it's not that you don't make any mistakes.
No, but like that, I have a place in heaven. Like, come join us. That's a creepy thought to have. What do you think?
Yes, I mean when you're in the middle of it and you grow up that way, though, you don't see it that way, right? You just see it as like, I have something great and I want to share it with everyone else, right? Like this is what's waiting for me after I die, and I want this to be waiting for you too.
Yeah.
So when you're on the outside looking in, though, you're kind of like, I don't see it that way.
You mean we can't celebrate Halloween? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well, not all of them are that extreme.
No, I know.
But,
I'm just.
But yeah, there's some of them that are.
Yeah.
And I brought up, we talked about cancel culture before on the show, and I've said, well, growing up in the Bible Belt, like, cancel culture is nothing new. If something was considered to be demonic or whatever, then the whole Bible Belt would write into that TV station and go, can you please get that witch Rita Repulsa off the Power Rangers? Like, you can vouch for this,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
That's an actual thing.
Really?
Yeah.
Rita
Repulsa.
They wanted her off of the.
Well, I'm just using that as an example.
Yeah.
But,
Okay.
I mean, the difference between modern day cancel culture and that is that modern day cancel culture is successful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe that's part of the reason why I'm like so anti-cancel culture. It's really become a big deal to me actually more recently, but I've always kind of been anti-cancel culture. But I think a lot of it is because of the way I was raised. It's like we canceled everyone that didn't believe what we believed, and even other Christians that didn't believe what we believed. So, now I'm all about wanting to hear people that think differently than me and wanting to have those discussions and wanting to have those open, free flow of ideas and debates. And you can't have that if you're just shutting people down that don't agree with you.
Yeah.
Every little piece of your ideology. And I'm seeing a lot of that happening lately. You talk about politically, it's like both on the right and the left. You see a lot of these, cancel culture, canceling everyone that doesn't like agree with you right down to the letter of your ideology. And it's just... I think it's unfortunate. Yeah.
I know you've gotten attacks from both sides, right?
Yes. Yes, I get attacked from both sides.
Which is more aggressive?
The left.
The left. That's what I can see that too. Because the right kind of wants to be left alone in a way, right? I feel.
Well, I'm not really part of their tribe, so for the most part, they leave me alone.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think maybe if I was more part of their tribe, so to speak, like it would be more aggressive. But since I've always considered myself more of a left-wing person, at least since my college days, I get more pushback from them when I say things that they don't like to hear. So.
And it's not even I disagree with you, because this isn't like we talked in comedy too. It's not we disagree. We want you gone.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
We don't want you to be able to do this anymore. Like, completely.
They want people deplatformed.
Yeah.
They want them like.
Just for exploring ideas sometimes.
Yeah.
Not really like, I stand behind this. Like,
no, it's just questioning things even. It's crazy. There's, people have lost their jobs, getting doxxed. It's just.
Yeah.
Ugly to me.
What's interesting is like the dystopian stories of yesteryear used to project a crazy government instituting all this kind of stuff, but no, we're just doing it to ourselves. Doing it to each other.
Yes.
You don't even need some crazy dictator to be like, no more books.
In 1984, what was it?
In
1984, everybody was being monitored. But
they were being monitored.
Ourselves.
And they were like deleting. The big thing there also is that they were deleting words out of the dictionary to fit the Big Brother's thing. And we're deleting whole concepts.
Deleting whole people, bro.
No, it's true. It's so true. Yeah, no. I remember reading 1984 when I was 12, and that book scared the shit.
Oh yeah, and it's like it's happening times 10.
I know.
Yes. And we're doing it completely signing up for Facebook, allowing the Android. Will you allow this op to use your camera? Yes.
And you think about what keeps you on, like what keeps you on there.
The likes, right? There's like a psychological study that suggests that
how else am I going to talk to this person?
Like, posting things for likes is addicting. Like, I got 40 this time. Like, okay, got to check back in.
No, it is. It actually is. It releases endorphins.
Yeah.
Found in the study, and it becomes like a drug. So people do get addicted to it, right? Yeah, we're doing it to ourselves. We don't need the government anymore.
We don't need them. We outdid them.
This is more of an Aldous Huxley kind of a thing, Brave New World, where just the whole world is on crazy drugs and parties, and they don't really stand for much. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the future we're living in.
What like right now in these times, how do you see like women or feminism? Like, how is it doing right now?
Well,
is it better? Is it a better time to be a woman now, compared to everything, in history?
Well, I wouldn't say compared to everything in history. I mean, obviously, I think there was times prior to this where it was much worse to be a woman. I mean, women didn't have the right to vote. They didn't have the right to own property. They couldn't work. They couldn't even
drive a car.
Yeah. Well, in some places of the world,
They still can, right?
Yeah.
Marriages also lasted longer. I wonder if there's a correlation.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly. You had no choice.
Yeah.
You were stuck. You couldn't take care of yourself. So, do I think that there's still, a lot of progress to be made? Yeah. I mean, I think a few things kind of have slid backwards. We were just discussing earlier, like with how men talk to women online, or young boys are talking to young girls online. It feels like sometimes it's getting worse, not better. The misogyny factor of it all. But it's hard for me to say whether it's overall getting worse. There's two schools of thought with feminism too, and that's the thing. You've got, a school of thought that's like the liberal feminism, and then you've got the school of thought that's the radical feminism, and they also fight amongst each other.
Really?
So, who's going to win out? I don't know. Liberal feminism is obviously more mainstream. It's more accepted by the general populace. Radical feminism is not.
What are some things you would consider, like you said, liberal feminism? Just to get the distinctions between both of them.
Yeah.
The two big ones?
Yeah.
Supporting sex work and trans rights.
That's what you would consider liberal.
No, so
that sounds radical.
Radical.
Well, no, those are the two that they argue.
Oh, I see.
yeah.
I see. Okay.
So, radical feminism believes that sex work is inherently oppressive to women, and that they think porn should be abolished and sex work should not be legalized. Where obviously liberal feminism more supports it empowers women, and women should be able to do what they want.
Yeah.
And then with the gender ideology debate, radical feminism says, women as a sex class, women have been, oppressed based upon their sex for centuries, and that men can't just become women. Where, liberal feminism is about, men can transition to becoming women, they are now trans women. So there's these two different schools of thought, and they don't really get along with each other very well. So when you've got all that infighting amongst your own group, I think it's going to be hard to really progress in general.
Yeah, I can see that. We talked about that with earlier about how there's real issues, but then we're focused on this other stuff that's in the way and overshadows the bigger issues. Women are still getting stoned in some countries.
Oh yeah,
by stones, not pot, not weed. Listeners,
it's amazing. It's women are still getting stoned in some countries, and over here we're arguing over whether men should be able to transition into being women.
Which I if you want to transition, that's fine. But I know there's stuff that I know women don't feel comfortable. A lot of women don't feel comfortable with men, or trend. What do you call them?
Trans women.
Trans women. Trans women. And I get their point on why they don't feel, because easily a guy could just put on a wig, like one of those creepy guys that creeps in the DMs could put on a wig or whatever. Unless, it's possible.
It actually has happened.
It's happened, yeah.
In fact, the rates are climbing now of men claiming to be trans just so they can get put in women's prisons.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And I'm kind of like, well, what did you think the end result was if you start allowing men to self-ID as whatever they want? Obviously vice versa, it goes the other way too, but as far as when it comes to safety issues and, protecting women from predators, a lot of these men that are self-IDing now as women and asking to be transferred to women's prisons are in prison for sex crimes.
Oh, wow.
Of course they are.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, it's basically opening up a whole nother pool of people they can prey on. And so
there's no escape.
No, and there's no escape. You're physically stuck here. So there are definitely some valid concerns behind where some of this stuff is coming from. Yeah. And I understand why there's been pushback on just saying people can just identify as however they want, right? Because there's real world consequences for that.
So that's my question. Are there newer updated levels of consequences for men who do that?
Not as far as I'm aware.
Okay.
At this point.
I think the safest would be to say, well, you can declare whatever, but if you haven't gone through a surgery or some sort of transformation, you're not going to if your junk is still obviously male, you're not going to the women's prison. That seems to be common sense to me. Like, if you go through the surgery and you make the full transition, then by all means put her in a women's prison. I wouldn't put her with men, because she is probably going to be sexually assaulted. But if you're so like if a trans woman is in prison with all men, I can post-surgery specifically.
Right.
I feel like it's safer for a post-surgery trans woman to be
away from men.
Because if you don't have the parts to actually assault, you cannot assault. So just put it with women. But if you haven't gone through surgery, then you should be just put with the guys. That's my.
Or maybe like there could be a separate place because.
Yeah, the issue is that it's arguable. I think.
Yeah.
Like just with people in general.
This is too hard, guys. Let's switch the subject.
Don't be a.
I'm just kidding.
We should talk about.
No, I'm kidding. This is hard because like, what do you do?
Especially because I'm not the same person as these people. You know.
No,
what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Right.
And I'm not in jail, but like I think that's a good point because. In prison, like they do become targets.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about safety.
Yeah, that's important. Safety. Of course.
I definitely think these are conversations we need to be having, right? Like we need to be working towards finding solutions towards these things, especially as transitioning becomes more accepted in society and more people are going through with it. I think the issue is right now, especially on the left with the whole cancel culture aspect, is that we're not even being allowed to have these conversations and they're just being shut down. And so
that's a scary thing.
It is a very scary thing. So I'm all for let's have these conversations, man. Let's, talk about this. Let's try to find solutions, right? Like you mentioned, maybe having a separate place, where trans people can be housed in, the incarceration system. But, or if they've actually medically transitioned, yes, move them into a female prison or, vice versa. But again, I don't pretend to have all the answers to this, but, these are things that people should be discussing. We should be talking about this. And we're being told we're not supposed to, generally speaking, by the leadership on the left and whatnot, and the people that are considered the outspoken activists for the left. And so that's kind of what my whole issue has been with why I'm I don't know if I really identify as being left wing or on the left anymore, because I want to be able to have these conversations. I want to be able to talk about these things. Yeah. And we're being told we can't. So.
Well, and it gets shut down.
It gets shut down.
Just having this conversation, you could take a clip of this and twist it around and say, they're against, trans. Yeah. And then that'll shut down everything.
This is the last episode.
This is the last episode. Yeah, exactly.
Thank you for listening.
Sorry. We meant transmission parts in cars, not trans women, guys. That's what we were talking about. Just.
I can neither confirm nor deny that we discussed.
We are in the shop. What do you think we're talking about? Yeah.
Transgender politics in the show. It is a very thick subject, to comb through. But what I will say is that, actually, let me ask you. So you don't feel like you can identify with the left, but the right sure dang well ain't trying to have this discussion except for going, we'll have this discussion. We're going to say no.
No, because they believe in rigid gender roles and that men are men and women are women, and you behave like a woman if you're a woman and you behave like a man if you're a man, and that's the end of it, and they're not having these conversations either, obviously. And if anything, they're the ones pushing to pass all these laws to outlaw people being able to transition, or get health care when they do. And so
close Planned Parenthood.
I mean, so obviously I have very strong issue and feelings about I was raised right wing, so I know all their talking points and I know where they come from. To this day, my parents were Trump supporters. This is my reality where I came from. So I definitely don't really feel like I have much in common with that side either. So
how was that during the last 4 years?
We had a silent truce, so we just did not discuss certain things.
That's how you get on sometimes.
Because there are 7 of us. So I'm the oldest of 7 siblings, and 4 of us are pretty moderate to left wing, and 3 of us are like my parents, and very right wing, conservative, and so it's just like when we'd have family gatherings, we just like, let's just not discuss certain things.
That's the simplest way to do it. Yeah.
Agreed.
It is.
It's got to be weird still, right? Like
It is, because I feel like there's like whole parts of my life I can't even discuss with my family because they don't want to hear it.
And there's like an external thing dividing the family, which is,
There's an old school rule. There used to be considered impolite to discuss politics, religion, and I can't remember what the third one was. In polite company, like dinner at the dinner table, at a party, you just didn't talk about
politics.
it. And this is why, right? Like you can
Yeah.
sit down and have completely passionately driven ideas about who you voted for and still eat as a family. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
there's
exactly.
a reason for some of those old school, rules of etiquette, and clearly they do work because
do.
I know some families don't have dinner together because their uncle voted for Trump and we just don't want him around here. Well, there's a solution. Just don't talk about politics.
Exactly. And I saw a lot of that too on the left. It was just like, let's just axe everyone out of our life that didn't vote the way we did or doesn't think the way we do. And I actually got a lot of crap for like not doing that with my family. They're like, how come you don't, you need to bring up racism with your family and this and that. And I'm like, and what's the point?
Yeah.
Like, I was raised with these people. I know how my parents think. They're not going to change. And me
Yeah.
bringing this up is not going to change anything. Like, if they come to me and ask me questions, then I answer it. But I'm not going to volunteer, like, a lot of that information because all it is it just starts fights. And it's not going to change their mind anyways.
And why ruin a good meal?
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say, is like I've never been arguing with somebody on the internet and have them go, "Oh, I never thought of it that way."
Right? No, you accomplish that more by having civil conversation anyways. Like, if you do end up changing someone's mind, like, that happens through civil conversation and them wanting to be open to it. If they're not open to it,
Yeah,
I saw
get it.
a beautiful example of that happen here.
oh yeah.
Where you identify Christian, and then we had one of your friends, I don't know if I want to say his name, but actually he mentioned his beliefs, Aaron.
Oh,
and he talked
yes.
about, Satanism, and these guys have become friends, and they have like completely
That's so
different,
cool.
and it's like, and they actually like, you guys
I
talked.
should hang out with him
You
sometime.
because you guys had a conversation about like where your opinions are on a lot of different stuff, and it was all different. And I was just, I kind of heard, but you guys were like on, like over there. It's like, where did these guys go? They exchange numbers? Like, what's, And now I see you guys are like on social media.
It's like every
buddies.
time I post, he likes.
And it's one of those.
And then I like, and then, but honestly, like after pandemic's over, I love to kick it with that guy, even though
If you're listening.
we don't,
If you're listening, Aaron.
even though we don't have the same. I mean, he's a Satanist, but he explained to me, he was like, well, we don't actually worship Satan. We're more of a collective group of atheists that do nice things for people. Like, and he had discussed how they had I guess they had compiled a bunch of money together so they could send art supplies to an impoverished school. And I was like, that's what my church should be doing. That's what they preach that we should. And my church does, by the way, do things like that. I'm not saying the church I go to doesn't. But I was like, hey, we have the same mindset. We may believe in different mechanisms, but we definitely believe in the same goal.
Yeah.
That's important.
Yeah. No, I adore Aaron. Aaron and I have been, friends for like 6-7 years now. It's been a long time.
I met him through Jesus. That's and then we had him on the podcast. Yeah.
I've met Jesus a few times. I don't know him that well. But
He's
Aaron.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So on the subject of MAGA and such, you said sometimes the folks on the left will be like, talk to your parents about race. Like how, out of curiosity, how far on the bar are they? Because there's a bunch of conservatives out there that would be convinced that racism is no longer a thing in modern America, and Trump is the furthest thing from being racist. Just like they say Trump is really Christian, although I don't know how they could believe that. Like, have they not listened to half the things coming out of his mouth? He doesn't sound like any pastor I've ever met. But
no, my parents are probably pretty much along that line where it's like they think, racism is a thing of the past, especially systemic racism. It doesn't really exist anymore. It's, something that, each individual person decides for themselves, how they want to succeed in society which, I mean, yes, we do have some of it is our own individual drive, right? Like we can only make excuses so far, but at the same time, I do still acknowledge that there were systemic barriers that have been set up that still, the effects of that still do exist to this day. And that's the kind of part that they don't acknowledge. But my parents aren't racist in the sense, like, they don't like call people names. You know, they don't use racial slurs. I've never once heard my parents use a racial slur. It's just more that kind of like, I don't know if you would call it like polite racism. I don't know.
Like clenching your bag
Kind of
around black people.
Yeah.
Kind of like the characters from that Jordan Peele movie, the first one that took off real well and was super successful.
Get Out.
Get Out,
yes.
yeah.
Where it's like on the surface they don't really seem, but
Yeah.
It's funny that you guys are talking about this. I experienced, I guess you could call this racism or not. I heard it, and some comedian mentioned it. I reference comics a lot. I'm sorry. I can't remember what comedian it was, but it happened to me in Fairfield at Rayleigh's. I was buying something, and then this white couple was walking on the opposite side towards me, and as like the husband looked at me, he said, "Hey, honey, let's have tacos tonight." I guess I brought up
oh my gosh, you made him think of
like
tacos.
a Mexican guy. Oh, let's eat tacos tonight, which is not racism, but you know, that's a positive race or prejudice thing, or you know, I don't know.
Not prejudice.
I've never had that happen to me. I've never had somebody been like, "Oh, I kind of want macaroni and cheese."
Yeah, yeah. Isn't it St. Patrick's Day coming up? You know.
No, if he had red hair, definitely.
Oh yeah.
I kind of want a Guinness and some corned beef.
Oh man.
But no.
You travel a lot, or you did.
Yeah.
You did,
sort
yeah.
of, yeah.
What I wanted to ask in regards to that is like, where do you think is the best place, or I would say where feminism is more, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess you say accepted or ingrained in the.
Well, I've never been there personally, but I would say probably certain areas of Europe.
Yeah. You mean not San Francisco?
No, not San
I'm just
Francisco.
kidding. I'm kidding.
Outside of the U.S., especially Europe. I mean, there's just in general, they're more progressive than us. Obviously, not perfect, and it really just each country still is different, right? And it depends which country you go to. I would say probably someplace like Sweden possibly would be more progressive in that sense. Feminism would be more accepted. I've heard really good things about Iceland, surprisingly.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it also got one of the highest atheist populations in the world.
Really?
As well, yeah.
Iceland? Oh.
Yeah. But as far as outside of that, I don't really know. I mean, I obviously know there's places where it's a lot worse.
Yeah.
Here.
What are those?
A lot of places in the Middle East are not places I'd want to go as a woman. I mean, especially if I was born there. I mean, traveling would probably be a little bit different story, but you know, being born in that society and raised, that would not be something that would probably be very beneficial as a woman.
Now that's a society ain't nobody trying to transition in.
No.
No.
At all.
At all.
It's a shame.
And it's anytime soon either.
No.
It's not.
Now, do you think there'll ever be a point in this nation's future where the movement, the organization, either loosely or super duper, what's the word I'm looking at? Constructive for feminism, do you think there'll ever be a point where there won't need to be a movement? It'll just be, it's respecting women is just normal.
It's just a norm.
You know? Like
Good question. I really think that would require
Hold your breath.
a fundamental tearing down of pretty much everything our society has been built on to achieve that. You know, patriarchy is very ingrained in pretty much all societies throughout the world, and you know, some more so than others. But it would really just require, I think, a restructuring of the whole paradigm of how we think and view, you know,
everything,
sex relations, and just everything. And I don't see that happening anytime soon. You know, I think this is a struggle that's going to be around for a while. Do I hope that would happen someday? Maybe like 2 or 3 generations from now. Yeah, I mean, I would love that, but I don't know.
That's the same answer I'd give if somebody asked me if I thought racism was going to end in the future. You know, speaking to the point of self-determination and versus systematic, my supervisor, where I work, he has a master's degree and a bunch of other certificates, and he's African American. And he has told me multiple times that it sort of gets under his skin that he is the only manager of this particular business, you know, because we have a bunch of sites all over the place. with a master's, and all the other guys just have bachelors and they're Caucasian, and he really feels like he had to have this master's in order to have this position, otherwise he wasn't going to get hired. Even though it's the same. And even with the clients that we get, he always has strategically, he's got his master's degree, his certificate in this, his teaching credential, all that to prove, yes, I can do this service with your student that you want to come work with us. Yes, see, look, there's a picture of me with the white kid and the Asian kid. See, I can do that. Look at me smiling. Look at the kid smiling. He's got to do all of this stack of proof just to get them to take him seriously. And because of the neighborhood that the business is in, it's mostly, middle class and upper Caucasians. And I'm like, wow. And he's a guy who's been all over, Georgia. He's worked in, he's been in the Oakland School District before, and now he's, elsewhere. I'm not going to say, but, and it's definitely still, he shouldn't have needed a master's to prove himself. He shouldn't have to point to that every time somebody. And then we had another guy who was sort of a co-manager in a slightly different position. The parents often would just refer to the other person, even though he's above that person, because the other guy was white. It seemed like they would just talk to him. Well, don't talk to me, talk to him. He's the guy in charge. Why are you talking to me? This is one of those weird things.
No, I definitely see that happening, and your story that you just told me is not unique. I mean, to me, those are the leftover, aspects of systemic racism in the society, right? Sorry.
We'll cut that out. I'm just kidding.
He's great at editing.
I think that, people do feel like they have to prove themselves more, right?
Yeah.
I mean, even with women, we still have some of that too. We have to have more of an education. We have to be, depending on what field we're in, maybe we have to be twice as ruthless as a man to feel like we have to get ahead, right? There's just definitely some of that left over in the society. And I don't see that changing anytime soon,
I see that in comedy. Women comics, are you really funny? That's the stigma with women comics.
Or when you have an opportunity and someone just yeah, duh, you're a woman. And I'm like, no, that's not what I have.
That gets brought up.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And aside from what you can achieve, just the, in a room, being the only woman in any kind of job you work in, it's you have that weird feeling. I'm sure you guys.
Yeah, it would be a weird vibe if you're the only woman in a very male-dominated field, and you're in in a meeting or something of that nature, and if you're the only one. And I can't say I've ever really experienced that personally. I mean, I've always had other women that I worked with in my field. It's never been just me, but for women that are in more male-dominated fields, like the STEM fields or whatever, I'm sure they come across that more often, and I can only imagine that would be intimidating, to experience that.
And
Now, as far as your field's concerned, you we said this before we started recording. You're the first person I've ever met, and it didn't even occur to me. Well, of course, there's real estate for Apple, but you do real estate for Apple.
Yes, I do. Well, I mean, one of many. We have a huge team of people that work on real estate for Apple, and Apple's divided into two sections. So there's the corporate real estate, which focuses on our corporate offices and the buildings we own, which is primarily IL, Infinite Loop, and Apple Park, or the spaceship as we affectionately refer it to. But and then there's retail, and I work on the retail side, and that's all of our stores that we lease for our Apple stores throughout the whole world, and we have 700 and something stores right now.
Wow.
So I deal with the leasing aspect of it, so it's the lease renewals and the new leases that come through for all of our retail stores. It's a lot.
Sounds like a lot.
Sounds like a
lot.
Now, how long have you been working for Apple? Was Steve Jobs still alive?
No.
When you were okay?
No.
So that bastard was long gone.
I've only been into Steve Jobs Theater once. I know. The theater, which is pretty cool. It was a tour though, so it wasn't during an actual presentation. I would love to still do that someday. Of course, those have been temporarily suspended due to COVID. They're not doing them in person right now, but no, June will be 3 years.
Wow.
I've been with them, so a good chunk of time, but definitely it was after Steve already passed. So
is it a very diverse?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, my team, both the actual real estate leasing and then the finance side of it. I mean, we've got people from all over the world that work on our team, from different parts of the world. So very diverse.
Diverse at the top too, because you're never really diverse.
That is a little bit less, I believe, just from what I'm trying to remember, because there's a lot of different people at the top in Apple. I mean, obviously we got Tim Cook at the top, but there's a lot of women, but as far as racially diverse, a little less so than I would like to see, but a work in progress, right?
That's how I feel at. Well, sometimes in the job I'm at, like, am I just filling in a quota? You know what I'm saying? Have you ever felt like that?
No, not at this job. No.
Oh, okay.
I am really good at what I do.
Yeah. No. I mean, like at any job.
No. Yeah. And then in the past, I felt like that could possibly be the case, but not here, thankfully. Right?
Yeah.
Like I feel like I'm actually contributing something, and I was hired because I can contribute something.
Oh, for sure.
But yeah, no. Especially when I was younger. We need more women to work here. Okay, here's another woman.
Now, with what you do, like, online, do you ever think, because you don't hold back on your opinions, do you ever think about like the repercussions, like work-wise?
That's why I don't use my real name online.
Genius.
And that's why even now I just gave you my first name, especially since I am talking about the fact that I work for Apple. I don't want people to know, you know, or at least I'm going to make it very hard for them to figure out
definitely.
who I am. Like they really have to dig. Apple has like 100,000 employees. So there's a gazillion Rachels. Good luck.
And that is still scary though, because, we have freedom of speech.
Yeah.
But that could jeopardize.
Absolutely, especially since Apple is very much about wanting to look very progressive, right? They don't want to tolerate anything that they feel might be anti that.
Yeah.
So yeah, you definitely have to be careful what you say, and that's why, for me to be more open, not that I feel like I really am saying anything that's anti-progressive or bigoted or anything like that, but
or super crazy. There's not.
No. But people can construe it that way, and especially with the cancel culture of what's going on right now, especially in social media. So I just have to play it very carefully. I don't want to give people more information than they need to try to figure out who I am and do that. So
well, no one watches this podcast, so you have nothing to worry about.
Except for our two fans in
Canada.
I guess
and
one
Ireland.
in Ireland now. We got one in Ireland. Yo, whoever you are, O'Shaughnessy, McCallum, whatever, we appreciate you listening to the Voice Party. Keep going, lad, and let more.
That sounds Jamaican. That sounds Jamaican, by the way.
Well, I am black. So
you did mention you wrote or you're going to work on writing articles.
Yeah, that's something that's like I want
pending?
To work on, and is pending. Since I went back to school to work on my master's, it's kind of taken a back seat.
Yeah.
But, I'm writing a lot of papers for that right now. So, you can only write so much without getting burnt out.
And it's great right now with like social media. There's so much, you can get draw material from the stuff. There's a lot of stuff that I've actually learned through you that I didn't know were a thing. Really? I mean, I can't list all of them right now, but like I remember you mentioned this incident where this shooter who hated women went into some university.
Oh yeah, this was in Canada. This was actually like 30 years ago or something. I want to say.
Not that long ago.
No, it was a long time ago.
Oh, 30 years ago. Okay.
Yeah.
Keep forgetting they have guns in Canada.
Well, they do, but I think this may have been before a lot of the more modern gun laws were enacted. I don't know. I'm not.
Do you know where
familiar.
in Canada?
I don't.
Do you want to tell people a story just so they understand? Yeah, okay.
Okay.
I'm out of the loop here.
I know. I forgot you guys don't know the story. I'm like, wait.
Yeah, no. So basically, I want to say it was like 20 to 30 years ago. It was definitely a while ago, but a lone gunman shooter went into a engineering class on a campus. I want to say it was in Toronto, but don't quote me on that because I really don't know for sure. I can't remember now. He told all the men to stand up and leave. And they did. They listened to him and left. And then he shot all the women that were left because he said that they were ruining the world because they were not doing what they should be doing as women, which is staying home, taking care of their families, blah, blah, blah,
Did any of them survive?
I can't remember. I want to say no, but maybe even a couple. I do believe most, if not all of them,
It would be interesting if any of them survived to hear from them,
what
their
happened.
story. Yeah.
I would love to, like, actually, if there was a survivor.
How many women?
I want to say it was like 8 or 9, just 10 maybe.
He had a handgun?
I don't remember the gun.
That's crazy. That they all just, yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Let me grab my stuff and I'm out of here.
Yeah, and the men just left. Not one man stayed to, like,
Defend
the women. Not one man, even a group of them, tried to take him out. Like, they all just got up and left, and they left the women there. And he shot them because he said basically, they were
cowards.
They were taking the men's jobs, right? Like, being in the STEM field, being in engineering, but they were taking the men's jobs. And he just had a lot of, I guess, hatred. Basically what we'd probably call, like, an incel, today.
Yeah.
Like, didn't have that term then, but... Yeah, so...
That's crazy.
And it's not an isolated incident kind of a thing,
No,
Yeah.
And this happened during a time when...
Was it
like...
The 90s, 80s?
I think it was the early 90s.
Early 90s?
Early 90s.
Yeah.
And that was a time when... And just to be frank, where men, air quotes, were expected to be men. So all those men walking out of there just basically turned in their masculinity card. Like, oh, I ain't protecting nothing. Bye.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I guess they were... Yeah, no, that's terrible.
That's horrible.
It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible.
Is there any, like, public information on the guy?
Or his story in general?
Yeah, like his
I'm
background.
sure. Yeah, you can probably Google it and find more information about it. It was just, I had come across it talking to some other women, and then I think I had posted about it.
Yeah, I remember you posted about it.
You and I were talking about it, and so it was more fresh in my mind then.
Yeah.
Now I'm like a little rusty on
it
details, but
yeah,
that
it
was
was
the gist of it.
It was sick. Like, what? Like, no one tried to, I'm leaving, then, like, shake and, run in front of her or something.
Something,
throw a
because I mean, if he's aiming at them, that's the perfect opportunity to take him out while he's distracted.
Yeah.
Yep. No, it was just, you hear these stories sometimes about these people that just do such heroic things when shooters come in, and that was not one of them.
Yeah.
Like, at all. And I think the more surprising thing was this also happened during a time when, school shootings, and I kind of consider it that since it happened at a university, right?
Yeah.
But, like, school shootings weren't as common as they are now. Like, we're just hearing about them all the time. Or mass shootings in general,
Mass
right?
shootings, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because school shootings were not uncommon, especially growing up in Richmond. We kind of saw, if not a shooting, if the shooting happened in the school, it was not related to any student. It was like, someone running.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It wasn't like the kids. And
Right.
that's the distinction to make here. There's a difference between a school shooting that occurs because there's some sort of criminal gang warfare thing and they just happen to pass through.
It just,
versus,
or it was an actual student who had beef with real gangs outside of the school,
right.
and then.
But that's different from, all right, we're in a non-crime ridden gang affiliated territory and I'm just going to pick up a gun and shoot all my classmates because that one girl said no, or because no one talks to me. And I'm not saying that, like, these kids that did this weren't suffering from some sort of extreme clinical depression or they needed to talk to someone, but it does strike me as very horrifying as much as it does happen. I mean, is there any way we can get to these kids before they do something crazy? Like, can we identify these kids before they do something nuts and help these kids before they...
Well, that's like the latest one, the 19-year-old or whatever that shot up at FedEx in
Oh,
Indiana.
yeah.
Like, his mom had reported him to the authorities, I think it was like a year ago, for being a potential danger. She wanted him to watch him because he did have, like, severe depression, and she was worried he was either going to kill people or take his own life. And look what happened, even though it was reported.
Wow.
He still did it anyway.
The Columbine kids too. They had been, I think, suspended or something for bringing guns to school already once, and they filmed like a Matrix style scene in school, which scared a lot of the other kids. And they didn't do anything about it. And then once it did happen, one of the parents, I don't know if you're familiar with one of the parents called in. It's like, I heard about a school shooting. I suspect my son, who is involved in the Trench Coat Mafia, that's their group name, said he might have been involved. I just, just putting it out there, and it turned out it was.
Yeah. The thing that gets me with them, too, from what I remember, that, like, they had, like, plans and all kinds of stuff in their rooms, and, like, I'm guessing their parents must have never went in there and looked at any of the stuff in their room. Like, I don't know about you guys, but as a parent, like, I go in my kids' rooms quite regularly.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's
Yeah.
not like I'm like going through all their like personal stuff.
Right,
but
you're not looking Dear Diary.
Yeah,
Today I was
no.
thinking,
And it's crazy that that's rare.
Yeah.
You know how close you are with your kids.
Yeah.
Like from what I see, not all parents are that
Well,
close.
they have no clue what their kids are like
Yeah.
thinking or up to, or even who their kids are as people. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, you wonder why they aren't getting the help they need. You know, whether it's mental health, because they're depressed or whatever, and then they end up resorting to doing these things. But I just remember when I was young, because when was it, like 99?
Yeah, 98, 99.
When
yeah.
it happened.
Yeah.
So I was like 13, 14. But I remember when it happened, like thinking like their parents didn't know, maybe because my parents are just always all up in my business all the time. So I just thought it was so weird. I was like, they had all this stuff about what they're planning to do, and like even like drawings for like bombs and stuff like in their room, and their parents didn't notice any of this.
And they made these videos, those creepy videos. I don't know if you've seen it, where they're like shouting into the camera. They're saying all the evil shit they want to do.
yeah.
And it's like, you see your kids doing that? Like, oh, Timmy, he's just playing. You know?
Like, no, that's not just
That's
playing.
not just playing.
That's
JK.
mommy's little psychopath.
He's 17.
All growed up.
Hey, macaroni's ready, Phil. Come here. You know, like,
Yeah.
come on, like,
Oh gosh.
that's. Ugh. It's difficult to go be a parent, man. I can
It is,
imagine.
But you really have to make an effort to like pay attention to what your children are doing, and also learning and knowing who they are as people. But I guess it requires like actually giving a shit, wanting to know, who your kids are as people, and wanting to know who they are as a person, and actually, I guess, enjoying and appreciating them for who they are as people. And I think a lot of people just have kids because they think that's what's expected of them.
Yeah.
And then there's this disconnect.
Yeah.
I mean, it varies, right? You have some people that still practice the old children should be seen and not heard. Mm-hmm. Do as you're told. But it's like, that only goes so far. You got to actually get to know your kid.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, they're only
Build
going to listen.
relationship.
They're going to listen to you better if they know you're coming from a place of love when you tell them, no. Anyways, like when I tell my daughter no, I don't just say no and say because I said so. I'm like, I'm telling you no, and this is why. And here's the reasoning behind why I'm saying don't do this, because you could get hurt. Or this, I go through an explanation process with them, and usually by the end of it, they agree with me.
Yeah.
I don't even have to tell them not to do it. They choose not to do it themselves because they understand where I'm coming from. And like you're mentioning, that old school way of thinking, which is, pretty similar to how I was raised. It was just like, you do what I tell you to do because I tell you to do it.
I'm right. Don't question me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, it's just like that is not conducive, especially with teenagers. And if they're anything like how I was as a teenager, the more you told me not to do something,
The more they want to do it.
yeah, exactly. So,
Yes, yeah, that's how it was. And luckily, for me, well, I mean, I guess this is kind of a toxic thing with my mom. When I would want to go out, she would go ahead. If you get shot or if this happens or, just, I'm not going to come get you. Like, okay. Like, you're going to end up like that cousin. You see how he fucking shakes all the time and like, you're like, okay.
She had like a you'll see kind of attitude.
Oh yeah,
like,
big time. Yeah.
Oh, you'll see.
You'll see. Go ahead. Go hang out with those losers. Like, yeah. If he's got beef with someone and they see you with him, when they see you, then they're going to shoot at you. And I'm just like, we're going to go to be watching the new guy,
We're going to go to the movies,
Yeah.
Mom.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I said to my coworkers, I said, look, when I finally have biological kids, I say that, but biological kids of my own, it's going to be like, I know that when the teens, I don't know what kind of music they're going to be listening to in 2040 or whatever year this will be. But I'm just going to be all like, look, I don't want anyone listening to classical music in my house. That is the music of the devil. You are not to listen to jazz either. That is the music of the devil's nephew. Just so my kids in their rebellious phase would be like, don't tell dad we're listening to Bach.
Yeah.
Living on the edge, listening to Fat Swaller on the piano.
Fats Waller. Shh, I got this Miles Davis, bro. Don't tell anyone.
reverse psychology.
Reverse psychology.
Yeah.
Is that actual instruments in my house?
Are you eating zucchini, you motherfucker? Like,
I told you no vegetables. This is a vegetable-free home.
Since we're on the
You turn
subject,
vegan on me.
I'm actually curious now as to how schools approach like mental health sort of things, because I know that schools do have counselors, but let's just say for some reason, like, the counselors there at the school, maybe because like, I've been to therapy and like it didn't take one person, like I went through a couple, so I'm kind of curious as to like how they would go about that if like the school counselors aren't a good match or something, like if they would take care of the bills like outside of, do the schools do that?
Depends on the school. I can tell you where I work at Kennedy, we have we have the school psychologist, and then there's also the YMCA that's attached to us has mental health workers there, and there's usually 2 to 3 counselors per year. I think the max we've ever had was about 4 mental health professionals, and there's 4 to choose from. So and it's paid for via, I'm not really sure, I think it's paid for via the state if the parent can't afford or doesn't have health insurance. I don't know if they'll sublet them outside of that, but that's kind of the closest that it comes to, because technically the YMCA counselors are not school district employees. They're Y employees. They're Y care.
Okay.
Well, I can say personally from my daughters, because they both meet regularly with the school counselor once a week. They both have ADHD, so they've been on an IEP program since 1st grade. And on top of that, one of my daughters suffers from bipolar depression. So I actually had the school counselor call the cops on her one time for being suicidal. So when she actually did get put in the hospital overnight for, I guess, telling the counselor at the school that she had a plan to kill herself. So it's not the first time I've gone through this with her. She is like a roller coaster. She is up and down. But I mean, I don't know how much that really answers your question per se, but they do seem to be pretty involved with like their mental health, generally speaking, not just related to the school. And if they do notice something, I guess, being a mandated reporter, they will say something. So I assume my daughters, which I hope that, of course, that never happens, but if one of them was talking about wanting to plan something violent, or she was worried she would be violent towards other people, she would probably also call the cops for that reason as well, So I think they are kind of on top of it, at least at the school my kids go to. I can't really speak to any others, but, so that was definitely a fun night.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But I mean, my daughter was mad at the counselor.
Oh, yeah.
But I was appreciative because I was like, she's doing her job. Like, this is what she's supposed to be doing. And I know you hate the hospital and you don't understand why she did this. But, it also was a wake-up call for her. It's like, don't just cry wolf, like saying you're going to commit suicide just to get attention. This is what's going to happen, and that is what happened. And she's been much better about taking her medication and staying on top of that and talking to her therapist since that happened. And I haven't had any incidences since then. This was back in October last year. So this is like the 3rd time that she's, claimed she wanted to kill herself. And
oh my goodness.
Yeah, so good times with that, but I was very happy with the counselor's response. Unfortunately, that counselor left in January, so she's no longer with the school. She has a new one now, but the new one seems to be good too, so I'm happy so far. But.
Do you think about her a lot when you're not around her because of that, your daughter?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like they're always on my mind, though, anyway. I'm always worried about them, but... they're pretty stable right now. I'm not really because they're home right now when I came out here. And I'm not really too worried about them doing anything at this point. And it's funny because overall they're pretty good. Like, they never sneak out, they don't do drugs. One of them, tried some of my champagne once, behind my back, and got a massive headache. And I said, well, that's what you get. But they overall, maybe it's because we do talk so much and they're pretty open, and I don't judge them about a lot of things. So maybe that's part of the reason why they don't really go out of their way to be bad. I don't know.
Oh yeah.
But they're pretty much homebodies.
That's good.
For laying a good foundation for them.
Oh yeah.
Awesome.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
trying.
No.
So how has distance learning been for them? As an instructional aide, I know that a lot of my students in the IEP program have not taken too well to.
It's been hard. It's been hard for them. Their grades are actually a little better than they were when they were in school, and I don't know if that's just because they're trying more or they care more, because this is the first year of high school too. So like in middle school, they just, by like 8th grade, they were just like, oh, I hate school, and now they're actually like not hating it. But it's funny because my son, who's actually in the gifted program, he's not in the IEP, he's in the gifted program, he's finishing 5th grade, and his grades have gone down this year since being in the distance learning, and he really needs to be in a classroom because I think he's more easily distracted outside of it. And you know, he's told me, I want to stay doing this. I'm like, no, you're not staying doing distance learning. You're going back in the classroom.
Sometimes the gifted students
let's get you vaccinated right now.
Bored easily.
Yes.
You know, and that's the thing. They need to be challenged.
He's like, because him and I are like peas in a pod. He's like me. It's so funny, like raising my daughters, because mentally and emotionally they're a lot different than I am, and my son is like my twin, so I know how he thinks, and I'm just like, yeah, you're like me, you need to be challenged, like you need to be doing rigorous work, because you will get bored.
Can you imagine going through this these kids are going through when you were a kid? Because I thought about that a lot. Like, I would have been loving this.
Well, I was homeschooled, so I mean, this was like my reality anyways. But then we didn't really use computers back then because this was the 90s, but you know, like I didn't go to school, I didn't interact with kids every day, so it was a little bit.
For a period or just
kindergarten through 12th grade.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's...
And it sucked.
Yeah.
I'll just tell you that.
What did you imagine that, like, regular school was like?
I thought it was more fun. Like, I could actually have more friends and have a social life. Yeah.
It was fun, now that I think of it.
Especially...
I never wanted to be there, though.
Especially in elementary school, where everyone's friends and they all get along, and then 6th grade happens and it becomes Game of Thrones real quick.
Oh, yeah. I saw that with my daughters. It was like... they went to middle school and it was like totally different world. I was oh. So...
Yeah.
But...
We've been going longer than an hour now. I don't know if you've noticed.
No.
It's been longer than an hour, and I don't want to keep you up.
No, it's okay.
I want to say, you know, overall, like, what's been today's message, or what message do you want to give off to our listeners?
Oh my God.
Because we touched on a lot of different stuff that you like go into with great detail. That's why I can't wait for your articles to come out.
Oh, yeah.
Just be yourself. Always question the status quo. Don't be afraid to question things. If something seems like it doesn't sit right with you, don't just accept it without questioning it. Yeah. I was always a scientist geek at heart. I mean, my first major when I was in college was anthropology. I was a physical anthropologist. Switched my last year to business. Whole different story. Was pregnant with my son. Economy collapsed. Figured it was the best route at that point in time for supporting my family.
But more money we made in that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So still one of my regrets, because my passion is science. I love science, and that was my passion. But, you know, did what I felt I had to do. But that's always been like my motto in life, is just question everything. And I feel like that's the only way you can ever really find the truth, is you always have to
find it yourself.
Yeah. And don't just take what people tell you at face value, and don't just believe something because the masses believe it, right? Like, so I guess if there's any message, it would be that, because that's just pretty much the core of who I am as a person. So
Awesome.
Love it.
Yeah. Again, thank you for coming and talking to us finally. Well, not, you know, we finally set it up. Yeah, dude. Well, hopefully your employers don't, you know, watch this. I mean, we didn't say anything that crazy today, but
I'm not bad mouthing my company. I'm actually very happy working for them too, by the way. So I will say that as well.
Yay.
But
If Apple would like to sponsor the podcast, we are open to
contact Rachel.
right.
All right, guys, that's been the Voice Party. We're out.